Hey everybody, Mike Toy, Bonsai Boise. Thought I'd do one more walkthrough of the trees in their fall color before I put them away for the winter. I'll start on this end with my dwarf Alberta spruce. Just did a video on that last week. Got it all trimmed up. My two Amur maples. They're kind of hard to see because they're, I guess the word I would use is shaggy. They're shaggy looking. And I'll explain here in a minute why I let them go shaggy in the fall. Here's the other one. I had an experience 6 or 7 years ago with a coral bark Japanese maple where I trimmed it up in the fall. But the problem with that is that trees don't heal very well in the fall because they stopped growing. And what happened was some fungus or bacteria got in there, and over the winter it set in and it killed the tree. Took me a while to figure out what happened, but since then I try to not trim my trees up in the fall. So you're going to notice a lot of them are kind of shaggy looking, unfortunately. There's my juniper. Had this juniper about 7 years now. I let it get too shaggy this summer and then I trimmed it up and it's starting to grow back out. This is just a little Hinoki cypress. Nothing to write home about yet. Just a little guy. I've had this like maybe 3 years now. It's hardly grown at all. It's a really slow grower. It's got some cool movement and it's cool looking foliage. Here's my Jacqueline Hillier elm. It had a great start this year. I took it from raw nursery material to this. And then I trimmed it up and just the growth pattern on it kind of left me in a hard spot. So it's in an awkward state. Here's my S-shaped silver maple. Haven't decided what to do with the roots. I like how weird they are. They're very unconventional, goofy, follows no, bonsai pattern, but I might do a root over rock, or I might try to start flattening that out and make it more radial. I haven't decided. Or I might just let it be weird. Could do that too. It had a much better year this year than last. Last year it got kind of sickly looking. Here's my main Siberian elm. Been on quite a journey with this. When I first got it, it had some horrible reverse taper and a big bulge right in the middle of the trunk, and I've been working on it ever since. I'll show you what it looked like when I first got it here in a second. It's come a long way. So when I first dug it up, it looked like that. Look at that ugly thing. And then after a couple years, I started chipping away at it like that. And I've just been working on it ever since. And now I'm just kind of letting it go. You can start to see where it's healing over on that cut a little bit. And the top part, I air layered off. You can see that scar there. About 2 years ago, I think it was. And there it is. That's the top of it. Was the top of it. It's in a pot that's way too big. Not sure what I was thinking. So I'm going to repot it in the spring into a smaller pot. Because it's got some cool personality. And I think it's deserves a better pot than that giant training pot. Still got a ways to go though. This is my twin trunk green ash. It also had a good year. I think all in all, most, if not all, my trees really had a great growing season. I think it's something to do with my water at this house because I moved in the spring and I noticed that moss can grow on the bonsai soil here, which means it's low. It must be lower in chlorine and fluoride count, because normally that kills moss. So the trees are doing better. I'm not sure how it got that twisty effect. I don't think I did that. These grew just as seeds about 10 years ago. See that cut point? That's it. I took that as a cutting 3 or 4 years ago and it rooted. It's got some pros and cons. Great trunk movement. I mean, fantastic trunk movement. Branching needs some attention, and look at that. That's a con. I don't know what happened. I've had 3 or 4 trees do that to me the past couple of years. I'm not sure why. So another juniper. I've had that. This is the second year that I've had it now. By the way, if you stick around to the end, I'll show you how I winterize these trees. This is kind of the last look before I winterize them all. So this little elm, it's those elms that have the tiny little leaves. I bought that last winter and have never done a thing with it. Not a single thing. It didn't grow at all. I'm actually not including this. I'm over 2 on these, so I'm hoping this breaks a spell. That's why I was so hesitant to work on it. But I don't know. It's not going good so far. There's a quaking aspen or trembling aspen. I forget if it's a... I don't even know if there's a difference. It's either quaking or a trembling aspen. My Siberian elm forest, which is a little sparse. I've got tons of cuttings that I'm going to add to it in the spring. I really like this little forest. I've had it going on about 7 years now. There's just a couple little Amur maples. These were just seeds. I think this was its second growing season. Amur maples get really good fall color. Or at least they always have for me. Bright red. Here's my Shantung maple. It's had a rough go past few years. You may not believe it, but this is my favorite tree of my whole collection. Top part died back. I've got some zip ties on there just so that I can remember this winter where I need to cut and get rid of that dead wood up there. But here's another one I'll show you where the trunk bark at the bottom just rotted off. Just like that ash cutting a second ago. See, I don't know what's going on. I've heard it can be Sunscorch. I've never heard of that before, but apparently that's a thing, and maybe that's what's doing it. I don't know. I've got a big willow that I'll show you towards the end that's also doing that. It's really annoying. I'd like to know what it is so I can make it stop. There's some juniper cuttings going on their second year. They didn't put on a ton of growth, but they didn't die either. They made it through last winter. Siberian elm. I've got lots of Siberian elms. There's this and another cutting that's the same age. I call them brothers because they're kind of like grew up together at the same time. But maybe 4 years old. They grow really fast. They ramify really quick and really easy. I'm going to do a pretty big chop to it in the spring though. I got a bunch of random trees in here. There's a lot of cuttings and newer trees. That's a Chinese elm. I bought that at a nursery. Of all my elms, I didn't have a Chinese elm. I wanted one. I don't know what that soil is. It's like it's crushed volcanic rock or something. So I'm definitely going to repot that in the spring. There's one of my 2 New Mexican olives, which I think is technically part of a privet family. Did a video on that earlier this year. It's got a bunch of weeds growing in there. I don't know how to say this right, so I'm going to try it. It's an orange osage. Osage? Got 2 of them. That one I wired up just to give it a little personality. That one I didn't. And then here's a whole bunch of Siberian elm cuttings. It was a good year for cuttings. I spent a whole afternoon and evening at one point just wiring a bunch of them up. I'm trying something new this time. I'm wiring up a bunch of trees in the fall so that they can go dormant over winter with the wire on. And then in the spring, I'm going to take the wire off. My theory is that they will hold their shape. That's a cutting that's about 2 or 3 years old there, by the way. That's not 1 year. But yeah, that's my theory, is that they will, once they go dormant with the wires on and then come back awake, they will have held their shape. So we'll see. There's the other Siberian elm cutting back there. And then I've got these Honeycrisp apples. And these are just from a apple that I ate. I just kept the seeds one day, planted them all up just in one little pot. Like 5 or so of them sprouted up. Once they were big enough to take it, I separated them out into their own pots. And now here they are. This is year 2. I'm doing different things with them. 1 or 2 of them I trunk chopped. A couple of them I wired. A couple of them I didn't. They have some pretty, like this one in particular, it's got some wild movement all on its own. I had to build it a little support wire just to hold it up. I'm not sure why it grew that way, but it did. So they're fun. And just a little tiny Amur maple that is really small, but really colorful and fun to look at. We'll see how he goes in the future. And of course, I've got some silver maple trees, little ones. There, a couple of big ones, couple little ones. Here's my trident maple grouping. There's 3 of them in there. I'm really, really hoping to be able to repot that in the spring. But I've got a pretty long list of trees to repot in the spring. It's really got some good color going right now. And before I forget, these are Jacqueline Hillier elm cuttings that I took from that main Jacqueline Hillier elm. My honeysuckle. The bark on this is always, it's like flaky and gnarly, and some would call it ugly, some would call it cool. I think it's cool. This is my green corkscrew willow. This is the 2nd year I've had it now. I've done a video on it at some point. It's grown out quite a bit, but unfortunately a lot of those branches are coming out of the bottom. And this is an Arctic willow, or an Arctic blue willow. You see these in like parking lots and office complexes, but it's got a cool just clump of a trunk down there. So naturally, I'm going to try and bonsai it at some point. Here's my Costco crabapple tree. Got that for $25 about 4 years ago. And it's starting to go well. I also hope to pot it up in a bonsai pot next year. I'm going to have a busy spring. Here's a willow given to me from Eric at Dreaming Green Nursery. This was the second year that I've had it. Thanks, Eric. It's going well. It's already root bound, so I'm going to have to repot that for sure. And then I've got a smorgasbord of willow cuttings that I'm doing a whole bunch of different things with. You're going to see all kinds of different styles, some wired, some not, some long, some short, some fusions. There's my boxwood. I got this for $5 at Walmart last year. It was a giant bush. I made a video on it. Check it out if you like. It was this giant bush, and I just hacked it way back and stuck it in a tiny little pot. And there it is. Definitely have to repot that in the spring. And I think I'm going to chop that top part off. That was a suggestion given to me from somebody on the video I posted, and I like the suggestion. A little juniper. Did a video on this spring. Unfortunately, the top part died off, so I just chopped it. And that's what's left. And I actually don't mind it. Kind of looks cool like that. More willow cuttings. Here's an interesting and kind of weird little Amur maple. There's two of them, and they twisted together. I don't even know what to do with it yet. I'm not doing anything yet. I'm just kind of letting it go, but kind of weird. But I like weird. My two Privets, those started as cuttings about 6 or 7 years ago. Done a few videos on those. What's weird is that they normally have yellower leaves, but this year they turned green. Not sure why. It's the reddest, darkest red of all my trees. That's a bay willow. Another one where the bark just kind of chipped off at the bottom. I don't know what is going on with that. That's number 3. I have a 4th I'll show you too. That started as a cutting about 7 years ago. And then other various willow cuttings, some silver maples, loop-de-loop style. That is a river birch, year 1 for that. Got that from Arbor Day Foundation. If you don't know, you can sign up for Arbor Day Foundation for $10 a year, and they'll send you 10 trees. 10 free trees. They give you a whole catalog to choose from. That's a Siberian elm that I decided to do a cascade style with for some reason. Honey locust. I think it's about year 4-ish. My Virginia creeper. Put on new growth right at the end of the year for some weird reason. Unfortunately, I missed the window on this. Most of the leaves have already fallen off. It always has great color in the fall. I just repotted it this year, so I probably won't repot it next year, but I'm going to have to do something with this cluster of roots. I mean, it's weird, but is it too weird? I don't know. That little thing there, that might have to go. Likely will have to go. I've got a Japanese elm, or Zelkova elm. Haven't done a video on it yet. I let it grow way out, and then I tried to air layer the top this year. Failed miserably, so it's gone, but it's growing back out, as you can see. I'll do a video on it when there's something cool to show. My other New Mexican olive, I have 2. They're so shaggy, I can't even tell which one is which right now. Here's a fusion that I'm doing with a yellow corkscrew willow, going on year 2. It's got some cool movement, and it's starting to fuse in a couple spots. Hopefully I can find it here. Right there, you can kind of see them starting to fuse together. A lot of these willows, I just kind of haphazardly just threw them together, and like this one, I braided. And if you've ever seen my other fusion videos I do on ficus, I'm always ranting about not braiding them, about how it's the slowest way to fuse. I think I just had so many willow cuttings that I was just trying something different on all of them. I don't know what I was thinking, but that's what I did. This is I call it my big pot silver maple. I've got lots of history on this. I haven't really posted an individual video, but I will someday. I put it in this pot about 5 or 6 years ago as kind of an experiment, see if the trunk would thicken up faster than otherwise. So far, not really. That first silver maple I showed you, the trunk is about the same size, and it's always been in a smaller pot. I've got a theory on that. I'll talk about more in another video, but for now, here's a blueberry bush that I don't know how to explain this one. It grows way out and then it dies way back. And then it grows way out and then it dies way back. It's kind of dramatic. So here's my original yellow corkscrew willow. Doing much better this year. But lo and behold, look at this. Look at the bark at the bottom of the trunk. What the heck? I should really stop messing with it. It's so hard not to when you're right there. But yeah, I don't know why a lot of these trees are doing that. If it is Sunscorch, okay, Mike, stop messing. Put it down. I'm making it worse. I don't know what I'm even looking for here. Yep, it looks like bark. Case closed. Anyways, I don't know why they're doing this. That side isn't even facing the sun, so I don't know if it's really Sunscorch. I just don't know what it is. But why a handful of trees all at the same time? Handful of trees that are all separated from each other, mind you. Anyways, if you've ever followed videos on this, you'd see last year was a rough year, but this year it bounced way back. Here's a dwarf Korean lilac. This is not the best time of year to look at it. The springtime is best. It has these really small purple flowers. Super pretty. Smells good and everything. Speaking of lilacs, this is my presidential Grevy lilac. Big, thick trunk base on it. It's always been in a larger pot. I think it even spent 1 or 2 years in the ground when I first bought it. And it just started as one of those little bare root deals from Walmart for $10. And it's going to need a trim next spring. Not a repot yet, but just a trim. Got branches coming out of the wrong spots. And, this is the wrong time of year to trim these, because those buds are going to become leaves and flowers next year. We don't want to rob it of that. You want to trim it right after its flowers start to die. Here's a newer addition. This is a wisteria. No real structure to it yet. I just put it in a bigger pot, put it next to this pole, and just wrapped it around, hoping it'll kind of grow up and around that big pillar. And here it is 2 days later. Putting them down for a long winter's nap. It's kind of sad. But all I did is I took them off the bench and put them on the ground. Then I took the bench itself, as you can see, and just propped it up with the bricks to kind of shelter it from wind. They'll still get some rain and snow, but hopefully they'll be better protected from wind. And well, I'm trying to demonstrate here how I did it, as if it's not obvious. And then I propped some of the bigger trees up on each end just to kind of block, more wind, a little more shelter. Pretty colorful. It's always bittersweet putting them away for the winter. A couple of them kind of wrecked the yard, but it'll bounce back. Anyways, that's my fall walkthrough of all the trees. Please like and subscribe. Leave me any comments, especially if you know anything about that bark chipping off at the bottom of the trunk on those trees. That's a weird deal. I'll peek at them again after a while, after the leaves have fallen, and we'll see how they're doing. Make sure everything is still in one piece and standing up. But thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.